All right, hey everyone, it is me here to talk about a little bit more about Wotv, and it's been about 24 hours since the update has dropped, and I have had some more time with the brand new feature of background farming, and I'm going to make a more succinct, more precise video than before. Sorry, yesterday's video was just, it was a new feature. I had a lot of stuff to cover, and I kind of wanted to basically show off like this brand new feature in a kind of a little bit of a creative way. But today we're going to actually just talk specifically about it. So really quickly, before we talk about all the details, here's the key point. Background farming is one, if not one of the, just the most important improvements to come to Wotv in the game's history. And I'm not here to argue that it probably shouldn't have been here sooner, or that it doesn't fix some of the core issues that are still available in Wotv. They exist, they are hopefully going to be addressed, but I am going to just talk today about my first 24 hours with background farming, what I've learned, what I enjoy, and what still needs to be improved. And to start, I'm actually just going to go into here and show off basically what my last little thing of background farming was. As you can see, it's running water team, we get our resources. And if you remember correctly, when I filmed yesterday's video, you saw roughly that I probably had about 2 recipes, I think it was, for the new piece of equipment here on the JP side, the new evasion accessory. As you can see, that number has really quickly risen over 130 recipes in under 24 hours. And that's really not that big of a deal. If you think about what, a lot of the whales that you probably follow, or hell, even if you yourself just do a lot of farming, 130 recipes in 24 hours isn't necessarily anything too terribly amazing to write home about. What is amazing is the fact that I used less than 2% battery to do it, and no, I didn't have to run my computer all day. Background farming is a very, very important addition to the game that will reduce a lot of frustrations of, I think, what people are having, because it is just so liberating in what you're able to do. So for the rest of this video, we're actually not going to show it. Again, I want to show how this works really quickly and give some more information about how this works. So first of all, you choose your piece of content that you want. Now, not everything is background farmable. Some pieces of content are not that. So like multi, for example, is not background farmable. Certain missions will not be background farmable. But core and essentially new farming stages, like farming for pieces of equipment like this, are background farmable. So you choose your piece of content, you click this button in the top right hand corner after making sure that your team is correct, and it will basically, without using any stamina, run through a trial run. Now this is completely optimizable. You can basically, if you get a run that you are not happy with, if you think you can do better, well then guess what? You just essentially cancel it, go back out, make your changes, and try again. Now, you are not able to do this manually. You actually have to do this just via the game's AI. But since it's essentially a auto version, a more automated, streamlined version, it is supposed to be using the AI. And what this essentially takes, as far as I can tell at the time of recording, because I'm not 100% sure of the mechanics that are exactly going on, is that it is basically taking the amount of time that it roughly takes for you to do one of these stages, and it's using that in future calculations. Now, it is not taking the drop rewards. Drop rewards are still randomized. So essentially, what we are really doing here in the case of this run is basically just trying to find a time code. How effectively can your team beat the other team and the general process of what is going on here. So yes, this is effectively what background farming's auto run is. It is not manual. It does have to be auto, but you can optimize it through AI as well as equipment, as well as positioning. So all of that is capable, you are capable of doing. So you should still feel like you have a good amount of agency in this. So once it is completed, we're going to be brought into this screen. Now this screen, effectively, you have a retry button, or you can just hit the cancel button and just go make changes if you need to. And it will give you a rough idea of about how much time it takes. From my experiences, I've basically been scoring around 1 minute and 40 seconds for this map. It does add an extra 30 seconds for randomness, as well as just general server processing and everything like that. Then you go down here and you click the amount of stamina you want to use. Now this comes out of your stamina pots. You are not using your regular stamina pool. So for instance, if we just choose 1, it's going to run 10 times, and we can see a time amount. So this is really great, because if you are trying to run this constantly 24/7, the game won't let you. It does get stopped by the daily rollover. So for global, I think that happens at midnight, but for JP, it happens at 5 a.m. But what it does mean that you are able to effectively have an idea. So I know that at the time of recording right now, which is roughly about 6:30, about 20 minutes later, this will be done, and I will be able to collect my rewards, potentially change it off, do a different map if I want, rune farming, for example, farming books, all of this stuff, gold farming, and if we're happy with it, we hit the go button, you get this message, and it will take you back to the main screen. Now, what I can 100% confirm is that you do not need to leave this app open while it is doing this. You can actually just close the app, go play a different game, go do other stuff on your phone. You don't need to worry about if you do just minimize Wotv. Even if the app does crash or freeze, which has been more of an issue, I think, on the JP side recently, but I've heard some globalers that do have this issue, or, if it crashes in emulator, great news, the background farming will still continue. It's effectively on the server side, and this is why I said today that I farmed 130-ish recipes with using only about 2% of my battery, because the app just wasn't open most of the time. I was able to set it and forget it for almost my entire workday, and just come back at certain periods of time and check how the farming did and see the resources that I got when I was on break. Excellent, fantastic, made my life super easy, and didn't increase the wear and tear on any of my devices, which is a big deal. But you don't just have that kind of freedom. You also have the other freedom to do polls, do chocobo look at your chocobo expedition, go into shops. Again, you have the currency. Like, you won't get the currency if you were, say, farming the Final Fantasy 13 event. You wouldn't get that currency until the auto farming is done, but you are able to spend in-game in the meantime. You can go do your statues, you can do arena runs, and more interestingly, you can actually do multi while you're doing this. Basically, the only things that you cannot farm while background farming is the stuff that background farming can do. So for instance, if you wanted to do rune farming, well, you set that up to start background farming, and then it will bring you back to the main screen. Well, you can't just go in and start doing background farming there. You can't just go do story. You have to go do some other things that are available in the game that, again, are not background farmable. Multi is a fantastic example, because we can just go right in here, load up a map, and I'll even just prove it to you right now. We'll do, I don't know. I want to do something relatively easy, but something that we're going to have, we're not going to have to wait too long. So let's do this newest map on the easier version. And as you can see, Background farming is not interrupted. If it is going to be interrupted by something and canceled out, you will get an error message saying, basically a warning message saying that if you do this, it will cancel your background farming. As for stamina that you may have, if it has used a stamina pot, which is most likely most of the time because it's running on stamina pots and not your current in-game stamina, well, that stamina will just get added to your current pool of stamina. Case in point, for example, let's say right now I have 130 stamina, and really quickly I realize I have to cancel background farming. It's already used a large stamina pot of 120, but it's only used one. That means that we have about 108 stamina left. If I cancel background farming, that 108 stamina will just get added to the current 130 I automatically have. But as you can see, this is a great amount of freedom that we have into what we are doing in-app and out of app, because no matter what, we are farming effectively this stage right now through background farming, but we're also able to do it for multi at the same time, potentially allowing you to farm faster for those who are more impatient, more motivated, and all of that. But it does just effectively allow you to play the game and just be multitasking. And in my general way of viewing the game right now and how this works, I mean, really, it's taking a major core component of the game, which is equipment farm in a lot of cases, and removing it from the stuff you really need to worry about. And that is generally nice. I'm not going to lie, I am really happy to have this feature in the game, because it has just for the first 24 hours just been so nice to know that my phone is not running. I don't need to check it constantly to see if there was an error or a server thing or a server connection problem, or the game froze or the game stopped or the emulator crashed. All of that is just totally not a problem, not worry. And as you can see, I can even have many more things I can do in app. I can be building characters and adjusting characters' builds. I can be doing Guild War at the time. I can be doing Arena. I can be like doing the Guild Raid, which is currently a thing. So let's just jump right back out of here for a second. Sorry to those guys who I was farming with, but we are recording a video right now and trying to be more succinct. But we can just go in and do Guild Raid, which is absolutely awesome. You can just be multitasking in-game far more than what you were able to in the past. And that feels just great. I'm super happy to have this. So let's talk about just an overall overview for my first 24 hours. Now, if there are any errors in this or anything that I have failed to omit, you can ask a question below, but I'm going to try and cover anything and everything. And there's one I can see already missing that I just remembered, and that is about proficiency, but we'll come back to it in a second. So good points. Energy conservation. I mean, simply fact, you don't need to be running your device or your emulator all the time. And that is enough reason for this to be on just a generally good thing. And the less we have to use, because I've heard of people, even in the comment sections of yesterday's video, who are like, you know, I've had to farm Wotv so much that my charger just doesn't work on my phone properly. This is good. Less wear and tear on your devices, less use of your computer's lifespan. All of this stuff is just great. Totally immune to freezes and crashes because it is just on the server side. It is not a problem to do with your device, meaning that in-app performance is not a consideration for how good this works. It does allow for multitasking in-game, which, as we have shown, you'll be able to farm multi, do arena, do many different things at the same time, while farming the stage effectively removes a farm burden, as I like to call. You know, just the idea that you constantly need to be running your phone or emulator trying to farm these pieces of equipment. You can't do anything else at the time. Well, it's kind of a thing of the past now, at least in many events or content maps, which is great. As for that, I mean, you can be doing something else at the same time. You could be playing Hearthstone or Legends of Runeterra or Ni no Kuni's game, or Genshin Impact. It just allows you to do multiple things, and finally Wotv is becoming less insecure about its players just being able to do other stuff, and that's a really big net positive. But also for people who are looking for something a little more involved, there is optimization potential as well. It's not just brainless set it and forget it, although it can be. That's the way I've treated it for the last 24 hours, and it's been a nice little breath of fresh air for me. But you can spend the time trying to optimize it to just make it more efficient. I know it doesn't seem like it has super huge time connotations, but just great. So overall, I think that the net amount of good points are stronger than the net amount of negative points. But that's not to say that there aren't bad points. You can't farm just any piece of content with background farming. It might be a little bit unreasonable, but there are going to be things in the future that people are going to want to auto farm, and it just won't be capable of doing, depending on the event type or the way that the content is set up. Second thing, I'm not going to argue this. Some people have already said in the comments for the previous video that this should have been added to the game much sooner. And you're right. You are absolutely right. This should have been added to the game much sooner. Other games have already been doing this, but not every game does have this, and not every game is going to add this. And I think that it is, credit where credit is due, that it being added to the game now is a really good thing. And last but not least, it doesn't fix the core issues of this game. Wotv still has an obsessive amount of farming, or an obnoxious amount of farming with an obnoxious amount of stuff required. But this does, as I have said before, reduce the amount of farm burden. It doesn't completely eliminate it, but it does go a long way into making it feel way better. And the one thing that I haven't added to this list that I wanted to talk about was proficiency, because proficiency, I've heard that it does add it, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, this is something I haven't tested because we're still very early on, and I've very clearly been using it to farm the most recent piece of equipment, which is not necessarily the thing I want to be testing proficiency on. But overall, I think that background farming is one of the best additions to Wotv that we've seen in an incredibly long time. Well, I know that I've talked about a lot of stuff in this video. If there is a big takeaway, background farming is an incredibly great addition, one that we should be really happy about. So, you know what? Regardless of how long it took to add the game, I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad it's making Wotv's players' lives better. And I hope that it comes to global before 3 months, because, like I've said, it's made my life better in the last 24 hours. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have found this insightful, and if there are any mistakes in this video, I'll try and correct them in a future video. But, it's still pretty early, so it's hard to have all the information quite perfect just quite yet, because, there still might be some stuff we haven't tested yet. So, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.